In this video we're going to show you how to service the drum brake and replace the shoes on your bike. This is for Euro 3 125 rear drum brake models. We're going to replace the rear brake shoe and service the drum brake. Start by putting a 17mm spanner on the axle. And for the axle nut, use a 19mm spanner, 19mm socket and ratchet, or to make it easier, use an impact gun. Now elevate the bike so there's no pressure on the rear wheel or swing arm. Using some long nose pliers, remove the split link, securing the nut for the rear brake arm, and then remove the nut with the 13mm socket. Next, using a 14mm spanner or a 14mm deep socket, remove the rear brake adjuster nut. Pull the axle out, unhook the chain, then move the wheel out the way. Now remove the rear brake drum from the wheel. Inspect the brake drum on the wheel for signs of damage, pitting, cracks, or any warpage on it. Clean the drum up with the wire brush so it's nice and clean and rust free. Now spray the drum with some brake cleaner and wipe it with some blue roll or a clean rag. As you can see here, the brake applies but it doesn't retract properly, so obviously it needs servicing. You can mark the lever and the shaft with a permanent marker so that when you put it back together, you know what position to put it in. Using a 10mm spanner and a 10mm socket, remove the bolt securing the lever in place. Now remove the lever. Using some long nose pliers, remove the split link, then remove the washer. Now take your shoes off. Now you want to remove the shaft. As you can see, in this case the shaft was quite seized in place, so we had to resort to knocking it out. Now clean the drum where the shaft goes into. We used a brass part cleaner. Try to avoid using anything that's more coarse, as this will damage the aluminium. Also clean up any other surfaces that the shoes come into contact with. Now clean the shaft up. You can use a steel wire brush on this because it's also made of steel. You want to make sure you get all the rust and everything off so it's nice and clean, ready to apply some fresh grease. Grease up the shaft with some multi-purpose lithium grease and put it back into the drum. Wipe off any excess and just put a little bit on the cam. Next, fit the springs on the shoes. Next, fit the shoes as shown in this demonstration. Next, put the washer back on and fit a new split link. Flip the brake drum back over and fit the rubber O-ring. These can also sometimes be a fibre gasket. Then fit the lever back on. Then put a bit of copper grease or aluminium grease on the bolt and secure it in place on the lever. As you can see, the brake now retracts nicely. Put the wheel back into position. And hook the chain back over the sprocket. As you can see here on the brake rod, the washer goes on first, then the spring. Now put the brake drum back into the wheel. Fit this little guy on the lever, I don't know what it's called, making sure that the brake arm, the brake rod, goes through the hole. Then thread the nut on. Make sure you don't forget about the spacers and the chain adjusters on both sides of the wheel. Lift the wheel up and put the axle back in. Put your brake arm back on. Next, thread the axle nut in by hand. Then torque it up to 70 Newton meters, or as I've done here, give it a few ugga-duggers. Make sure that your chain tension and wheel alignment is correct. Then tighten the brake arm nut back up. Then fit the split pin. Then adjust the rear brake nut up until you've got decent travel in the rear brake and the rear brake's not binding when it's not applied. Then finally sit on the bike, move it back and forth while applying the brake just to see if everything applies and retracts perfectly. Then recheck over all your torque settings to make sure it's all torqued up to specifications. So that's how you service the rear brake on your bike and replace the rear brake shoes. All the parts for these bikes are in the description. And don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the bell icon for notifications.